Connor and Madison barely know him anyway. My name is Carter Reynolds. I'm 42 years old. I run Reynolds Security Solutions. Rebecca, my wife of 8 years, just said that about me to Ethan Morrison, a guy I thought was my friend. I heard every word through my surveillance system. They were at the Ritz-Carlton downtown, room 2847. Rebecca wore a $15,000 diamond bracelet I never bought her. Ethan bought it with $23,000 he stole from our joint account. Rebecca laughed when she said, "My kids barely knew me." Ethan said, "After the divorce, they'll understand Daddy was never there." Rebecca nodded. "We'll make sure they see the truth. 8 years married. 12 years in Army intelligence. 15 years building my business to $2.3 million a year. These idiots thought they could take it all. If you like stories about cheaters getting exactly what they deserve, hit like and subscribe right now. We post new stories daily, each one crazier than the last. Back in 2013, I left the Army after 12 years in military intelligence and started Reynolds Security with $50,000 and a laptop. Corporate security consulting, helping companies protect data, executives' secrets. Businesses pay big money for someone who thinks like the bad guys. I met Rebecca Walsh at a charity dinner for Chicago Children's Hospital. She was 28. I was 34. She was a real estate developer specializing in luxury downtown condos. Drop-dead gorgeous auburn hair, confidence that made every guy notice her. Rebecca grew up rich. Her dad, Robert Walsh, is a U.S. Senator. Her mom, Patricia Walsh, is a federal judge. They lived in a $3 million Lincoln Park house and sent Rebecca to private schools her whole life. She expected the best of everything. First date cost me $300. Dinner at Alinea, Chicago's fanciest restaurant. Rebecca ordered the most expensive wine without looking at prices. Should have been a warning sign. We moved fast. 6 months in, she was staying at my apartment most nights. 1 year later, I proposed with a 3-carat ring that cost $18,000, 2 months' salary. The wedding was everything Rebecca wanted. 200 guests at the Palmer House, open bar, 7 courses. Total cost, $85,000. I paid it all. The first few years felt like winning the lottery. Business was growing fast. Rebecca made good money selling high-end condos. We bought a 4-bedroom Lincoln Park house for $1.2 million. 2 BMWs in the driveway. Europe vacations twice a year. Rebecca loved the lifestyle my success provided. Designer clothes from Nordstrom. $3,000 shopping trips without thinking. First-class flights everywhere. Dinners where entrees cost $60. She bragged to her friends about how successful her husband was. By 2016, I was pulling serious money. Reynolds Security had 12 employees and major corporate contracts. Rebecca said she was ready for kids. Connor was born March 15, 2016 at 3:22 a.m., 7 pounds, 4 ounces. He screamed so loud nurses next door heard him. Madison arrived 12 minutes later, 6 pounds, 11 ounces. So quiet we worried at first. Both perfect. The kids changed everything for me. I started working longer hours, taking bigger clients, pushing harder than I ever had in the Army. Every contract, every late night was for their future. Rebecca seemed to understand. She brought me coffee during late office sessions. She massaged my shoulders when cases stressed me out. She bragged to mom friends about how hard I worked for our family. In 2018, things changed. Rebecca had phone conversations that stopped when I entered the room. She started going to social events without me. Galleries, charity dinners, industry parties. When I asked why I wasn't invited, she told me, "You're always too busy with work anyway." That's when Ethan Morrison appeared. Rebecca introduced him as a business partner. He was 35, divorced, no kids. Black BMW M5, $2,000 suits, an easy charm that filled any room. Rebecca said Ethan had commercial real estate connections for her expansion plans. They'd partner on a big downtown project. She spent hours at his office planning strategy and came home talking about how brilliant he was. I liked Ethan immediately. Stupid mistake. He'd come for dinner every few weeks, bring expensive wine and gifts for Connor and Madison, toys, books, stuffed animals. The kids loved him. Ethan and I would sit in my living room after dinner, drinking whiskey and talking sports, politics, business strategy. He seemed interested in my work, asked smart questions about corporate security, expressed admiration for military service. What I didn't realize was every conversation was intelligence gathering. Every question about my business taught him how to destroy it. Every compliment studied my weaknesses, figuring how to exploit my trust. By 2019, Rebecca's attitude toward me completely changed. Everything I did annoyed her. How I loaded the dishwasher, the hours I worked, how I disciplined the kids. Arguments came from nowhere. "Children need their father present," she'd say during fights when I was most work-stressed. "Money isn't everything, Carter. Family should come first." The irony made me angry. I worked 70-hour weeks for my family. Every late night was so Rebecca and the twins could live in our house, so the kids could attend Chicago's best private school, so Rebecca could keep her lifestyle. But even while criticizing my work schedule, Rebecca never suggested cutting expenses. She still wanted designer clothes costing more than most people's monthly salary. She still wanted luxury vacations and $200 wine bottles. Meanwhile, Ethan became a permanent fixture. He showed up Saturday mornings with fancy coffee and bagels. He stayed for Connor's soccer games and Madison's dance recitals. He helped put the kids to bed and read stories in voices that made them giggle. I told Ethan things I shouldn't have. Details about our biggest clients, which companies worried about data breaches, which executives needed protection. I told him about our family finances, savings, investment accounts, life insurance. I thought I was talking to a friend. I was actually giving intelligence to an enemy planning to destroy my life. The breaking point came in February 2020. I returned from a week-long Seattle job, a tech company data breach that paid $75,000 for 7 days of work. Exhausted but excited to spend time with my family, I walked into a house full of strangers. Rebecca barely looked up from her laptop. "Oh, you're back," she said, like I was the mailman. Connor and Madison, who usually ran screaming, "Daddy's home!" after trips, seemed shy. When I asked what was wrong, Rebecca said something that hit like a punch. "They're not used to you being here anymore. You've become a stranger in your own home." Lying next to a woman who felt more distant than when we were dating, I made a decision: figure out what was happening to my family and fix it. Investigation started small. 12 years in military intelligence teaches you not to jump to conclusions. Gather data, analyze patterns, build the full picture before acting. I started with Rebecca's laptop, a MacBook Pro she used for work but often left open in the kitchen while she dressed upstairs. I had about 10 minutes most mornings. Most people don't understand deleted files. They're never really gone. When you delete something, the computer marks that space as available for new data. Until something overwrites it, everything stays exactly where it was. Rebecca cleared browser history and emptied the trash, but she didn't know about shadow files and cache recovery. It took exactly 3 hours and 17 minutes to rebuild her digital footprint from the past 8 months. What I found made me sick. The romantic stuff started June 2019, text messages between Rebecca and Ethan that began as business and quickly became personal. By July, they were meeting for 3-hour lunches. In August, Rebecca sent him photos, lingerie I'd bought, posed in our bedroom while I traveled for work. But the affair was just the surface. Underneath was a detailed plan to systematically destroy my life. Rebecca and Ethan plotted for months. Their strategy targeted every part of my existence. They planned to claim I used security equipment to illegally spy on competitors, destroy my professional reputation, and open lawsuits to bankrupt Reynolds Security. They'd argue I was psychologically unstable, obsessed with surveillance, possibly dangerous to my family. Rebecca's mother, Judge Patricia Walsh, would help ensure a custody battle went their way. Father, Senator Robert Walsh, had connections who could blacklist me from future contracts. The most damaging document was a draft custody petition Rebecca worked on with divorce attorney Lawrence Sterling. She painted me as an emotionally distant workaholic who abandoned family responsibilities pursuing financial gain. She claimed the children were afraid of my unpredictable behavior and excessive control needs. Everything was calculated to destroy me. But there was something else in those files, a reference to a sealed 2011 court case involving the Walsh family. Something about a traffic accident handled discreetly through family connections. I realized I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was going on offense. Next phase required military intelligence skills I'd hoped never to use against people I once loved. I began systematic surveillance of Rebecca and Ethan, documenting movements, communications, and financial activities. Installing surveillance equipment in my own house felt surreal but necessary. I used company gear, tiny cameras hidden in smoke detectors and picture frames, audio devices tucked into Rebecca's purse and car, a GPS tracker on the $15,000 diamond bracelet Ethan gave her. 2 weeks later, I had everything I needed. High-definition video of Rebecca and Ethan in hotel rooms at the Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons, the Peninsula. Audio recordings of them discussing plans to destroy me, including specific lies they planned to tell in court. The most valuable intelligence came from Ethan's phone. Like many criminals, he'd gotten arrogant about security. His password was his birthday, February 14th. Should have been the first clue about his narcissism. Once I accessed his device, I discovered the true scope of their financial planning. Ethan had opened 3 offshore accounts, 2 in the Cayman Islands and 1 in Switzerland. He'd been systematically transferring money from an investment account he shared with Rebecca, planning to disappear once the divorce was finalized, and Rebecca claimed half my assets. The numbers were staggering. Over the past 6 months, Ethan moved $340,000 offshore, money from our joint investments, Rebecca's business profits, even a loan he'd taken using our house as collateral without telling me. He'd also booked a one-way first-class ticket to Monaco for March 15th, exactly 2 weeks after Rebecca planned to file divorce papers. The plan was obvious. Let Rebecca destroy me in court, take half my money, then disappear with the stolen nest egg while she played the wounded ex-wife. This wasn't just betrayal. It was organized theft on a massive scale. Investigation into the Walsh family's buried secrets took 3 weeks, but proved the most valuable intelligence I'd ever gathered. The sealed 2011 court case involved Rebecca's younger brother, Timothy Walsh, who killed an entire family while driving drunk. The victims were Maria Rodriguez, 34, a nurse, her husband Carlos Rodriguez, 36, daughters Isabella, 8, and Sophia, 5. They were driving home from Sophia's Chuck E. Cheese birthday party when Timothy, drunk and driving his father's Mercedes at 70 in a 35 zone, ran a red light and slammed into their Honda Civic. All 4 died instantly. Timothy walked away with a bruised rib. Judge Patricia Walsh made sure her son never faced real consequences. Evidence was suppressed. Witnesses were intimidated into changing stories. The prosecutor accepted a plea deal that sent Timothy to private rehab for 6 months instead of prison. Senator Robert Walsh reportedly made strategic campaign contributions to the district attorney's re-election fund, ensuring his son's freedom. For 12 years, the Rodriguez family's extended relatives tried to get justice. Every lawyer they consulted told them it was hopeless because the evidence was sealed and the Walsh family had too much influence. I spent 3 weeks verifying every detail, cross-referencing court documents with financial records, and tracking witnesses paid to stay quiet. I assembled ironclad proof that the Walsh family corrupted the justice system to protect their son. Now I had leverage. First, I let Rebecca and Ethan make their move. I wanted to see how far they'd go. The call came on a Tuesday morning in early March. Lawrence Sterling, Rebecca's attorney, voice dripping with arrogance. Mr. Reynolds, everyone's best interest if we met to discuss your wife's petition. Certain matters are better resolved privately than in messy public litigation. His office was on the 47th floor of the Willis Tower. Mahogany furniture, leather law books, walls covered with family law awards. Sterling slid a thick folder across his desk. These are Mrs. Reynolds' terms. Sign these documents and avoid a court battle you're guaranteed to lose. I opened the folder and read the demands. Rebecca wanted full custody of Connor and Madison. I'd be allowed supervised visitation 1 weekend a month. Our house, both BMWs, and 60% of Reynolds' security assets, about $1.4 million. Alimony $8,000 a month for 15 years. Sterling leaned back, clearly enjoying what he assumed was my shock. Mrs. Reynolds has substantial evidence of your inappropriate behavior, he said. Surveillance obsession, emotional absence, military interrogation techniques in business, suggesting possible psychological instability. Judge Patricia Walsh already reviewed preliminary evidence and indicated she'd look very favorably on Mrs. Reynolds' petition. Then he placed a manila envelope on his desk. Give this to your client. Tell her to read carefully before deciding how aggressive she wants to be. Sterling frowned. What exactly is this? I said. Just deliver it, Lawrence. She might want to start looking for a new client. The envelope contained everything. High-resolution photos of Rebecca and Ethan in hotel rooms. Printed text messages planning my destruction. Bank statements showing money stolen from accounts. Financial records proving Ethan's offshore thefts. Most importantly, a complete investigative file on the Rodriguez case, including new evidence that could finally bring Timothy Walsh to justice and destroy the Walsh family's public image. The first phone call came 6 hours later. Rebecca, voice shaking with rage and terror. "Carter, we need to talk." "Right now." "No," I said. "Everything I have to say is in that envelope. You don't understand what you're doing. My family has connections who can destroy you in ways you can't imagine." She said, "Your family has secrets, Carter. Dark, ugly secrets they've spent 12 years hiding." I told her she should ask her mother about Maria Rodriguez, Carlos, Isabella, and Sofia. I told her how much it cost her father to keep Timothy out of prison. The line went quiet for almost 30 seconds. "What do you want?" she whispered. "Justice," I said. "You withdraw the divorce petition immediately, sign an agreement giving me full custody of Connor and Madison. Ethan returns every stolen penny and disappears from our lives permanently. Your mother resigns from the bench before I take this to the FBI and the media." "You're asking us to destroy our lives," she said. "You tried destroying mine first. Difference is everything I have on your family is true." She asked if I was bluffing. "Am I?" I said. "Ask your mother about Maria Rodriguez." The second call came an hour later from Ethan. Where Rebecca was scared, Ethan was furious. "You sick bastard. You've been spying on us like a psychopath. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of freak you are." I told him to go ahead and tell people about the $340,000 he stole and his Monaco ticket. He got quiet. "I know everything," I said. "Every account, every transfer, every lie." He couldn't prove anything, but I could. Bank records, flight confirmations, hotel receipts, documentation of every crime he'd committed in the past year. The only question was whether he wanted to face charges in Chicago or spend his life running from federal investigators. The third call was the one I'd been waiting for. Judge Patricia Walsh. Her usually commanding voice reduced to something smaller, fragile. "What exactly do you want, Carter?" I told her what I wanted. Justice for the Rodriguez family, consequences for her son, removal of her family from my life. She said, "You're asking me to destroy my career, my reputation, everything I've worked for." I told her she destroyed those things 12 years ago when she helped her son get away with murder. "I'm asking you to finally face consequences. And if we don't agree to your terms," I said, "then Maria Rodriguez, Carlos Rodriguez, Isabella, and Sofia finally get justice." Hung up without waiting for a response. What I hadn't anticipated was how desperate Ethan would become when he realized he was trapped. The next morning, Rebecca called at 6:47 a.m., sobbing uncontrollably. "Carter, Ethan's gone. He cleaned out every shared account and disappeared. Took everything and all money for the new business, everything. Left me with nothing." I checked surveillance data. Ethan's car was gone from the apartment parking garage. His phone was off. A quick call to an American Airlines contact confirmed my suspicion. Ethan had booked an emergency Paris flight that departed at 11:30 p.m. the previous night. He panicked and ran, leaving Rebecca holding the bag. "Please, Carter," Rebecca begged through tears. "I made terrible mistakes, but we can fix this. Go back to the way things were." "No," I said. "You made your choice deciding to destroy our family. Now you live with the consequences." I immediately called an FBI contact from my Army days, Jake Murphy, who worked financial crimes at the Chicago field office. I provided detailed information about Ethan's offshore accounts, the theft from Rebecca's business, and his flight to France. 6 hours later, Ethan's assets were frozen by federal court order. 12 hours later, his name was added to Interpol's international watch list. 18 hours later, he was arrested at Charles de Gaulle Airport, trying to board a connecting flight to Switzerland, a country with no U.S. extradition treaty. 2 weeks later, the final meeting took place in Lawrence Sterling's office. Rebecca sat across the table looking completely different from the confident woman I'd married 8 years earlier. Designer clothes wrinkled, makeup smeared from tears, hands shaking as she stared at custody agreement and asset division papers spread across the table. "Just sign them, Rebecca," I said. She looked at the documents like they were a death sentence. "Carter, please. Think about Connor and Madison, what this will do to them. I am thinking about them, I said. Teaching them actions have consequences. You can't build a life on lies and betrayal and expect it to last. She signed every document. She signed custody over to me. She signed asset division, leaving her $50,000 and personal belongings. She wrote a formal apology for misunderstanding her husband's dedication to family. The aftermath was swift and complete. Judge Patricia Walsh announced her resignation from the federal bench 3 days later, citing personal health issues requiring immediate attention. Everyone who mattered knew the real reason, avoiding federal prosecution for judicial corruption. The FBI reopened the Rodriguez case with the new evidence I provided. Timothy Walsh was arrested at his father's house on charges of vehicular manslaughter, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. After 12 years of freedom, he finally faced consequences for killing 4 innocent people. Senator Robert Walsh's political career ended in scandal when his connection to the cover-up became public. 30 years of influence and power were destroyed in weeks. He announced he wouldn't seek re-election and quietly retired to avoid further investigation. Ethan Morrison was extradited from France 2 months later. He was charged with embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit theft. Federal prosecutors offered him a plea deal, 7 years in prison in exchange for returning stolen money and testifying against others involved. He took it. Rebecca lost everything that mattered to her. Her reputation in Chicago's social circles was destroyed. Her real estate business collapsed when clients learned about the scandal. Wealthy friends stopped returning calls. She was forced to sell BMWs, jewelry, and designer clothes to pay legal bills that exceeded $200,000. Eventually, she found work as a receptionist at a small Schaumburg real estate office, making $32,000 a year, roughly what she used to spend on handbags in a month. Me, I got my children back. Connor and Madison live with me full-time now. For the first time in years, the house feels like a real home instead of a battlefield. They're 8 now, old enough to understand that sometimes adults make bad choices and families change. Business has never been stronger. Word spread through Chicago's corporate community about how I handled the Rebecca and Ethan situation. Clients started seeking me out specifically because they knew I could protect them from any threat, external or internal. Reynolds Security Solutions now has 28 employees and annual revenue of $4.2 million. The most important change is how I spend my time. Surveillance equipment is gone from the house. Late-night work sessions were replaced with bedtime stories and Saturday morning chocolate chip pancakes. I coach Connor's Little League team, the Lincoln Park Lions, and help Madison with art projects. I'm present in their lives in a way I wasn't before because I understand what I almost lost. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I sat in the backyard on a warm summer evening watching Connor and Madison run through the sprinklers, laughing so hard they could barely breathe. Their joy was pure and innocent, completely unaware of the war I'd fought to preserve their childhood. I realized Rebecca had been right about one thing. I had chosen work over family too many years. Not anymore. Every decision I make starts with one simple question. What's best for Connor and Madison? People sometimes ask if I regret how everything ended, if I wish I could have saved my marriage instead of destroying it. The answer is simple. You can't save something built on lies. Rebecca and Ethan thought they could manipulate me because they saw only what they wanted. A workaholic too focused on business to notice betrayal. They were wrong. Their mistake cost them everything they thought they wanted. My patience and preparation gave me back everything that actually mattered. I didn't win through revenge or anger. I won through careful investigation, strategic thinking, and the understanding that truth is more powerful than lies. Rebecca and Ethan destroyed themselves with greed and stupidity. I just made sure they couldn't take my children down with them. That's the difference between justice and revenge. Revenge is making someone pay for hurting you. Justice is protecting what matters most and ensuring people face appropriate consequences for their actions. Kids laugh and play in the backyard. My business protects good people from bad ones. Rebecca answers phones at a desk in the suburbs, finally learning what real consequences look like. Ethan counts days in a federal prison cell. Sometimes good guys win. Sometimes patience and preparation beat arrogance and greed. Sometimes the truth really is enough. If you enjoyed this story, hit like and leave a comment. If you haven't subscribed, do it now and hit the notification bell for alerts about new stories like this. Thanks for watching. See you next video.